How many of you read a post I wrote called My Billion Dollar Mistake? Show of hands. Okay, for those of you that haven't read it, ask somebody about it, because I keep getting messages about it, and I don't know, I think I wrote something interesting. But the concept in there is that I used to throw Hiten bombs, and that's why I made a billion-dollar mistake. But you should read it. But I'm not the only one that throws bombs. My friend Casey Winters does too. So now I'm going to ask you, how many of you feel this way about product marketing? You can be honest. Okay, fine, I'll raise my hand. All right. He tends to be very sensationalist, sometimes like me, and he's very thoughtful. You should definitely read his blog. You'll see links in a lot of this stuff that I have, and I'm sure the deck will be available and stuff like that. And if some of you have your computers open, most of you don't, which is awesome, so you get to listen to me. You'll kind of see more context on all this stuff, because I feel like there's so much out there, and I'll get more into that. So if Casey's saying that, what I was wondering after I read that he's saying that is like, what is this product marketing thing? What are we all involved in? For context, I do a ton of it. I do a ton of it all the time in all of our products. I've rarely had someone full-time focused on product marketing at my companies. Usually it was a marketing function, and we never really got to a place where we needed to hire that, because we introduced it into our product development processes, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So, you know, just like you do, you're like, okay, what's product marketing? Let me Google it. So I Googled it. And then I got an answer from Wikipedia. So it's some kind of process for promoting something. Then I got deeper, and Wikipedia has this whole thing about what it is and lots of content. Then it turns out HubSpot. Obviously, HubSpot is ranked for the term product marketing like they're ranked for every other freaking term out there. So they had an answer. Then Intercom. Well, they're not ranked for everything, but they're definitely ranked for a lot of things product. So they had an answer. And then they went deeper. And then my fine friends at Drift, they had an answer too. They went deeper. And just like a Hiten bomb, I was like, I don't know. Like, I really don't know how to describe this. I know what I do. I know what we do on our teams. I know how I think about it. But I really don't know anything yet from reading all that stuff, because there's all kinds of different opinions about it, except that, you know, if I were to summarize everything I read, product marketing is a lot of crap to do. So I needed to come up with something for all of you and be like, okay, well, how do I think about product marketing? I'm not a full-time product marketer, but it sometimes feels like I am. I love product. I probably love product too much, way too much. And so I'm like, okay, what is great product marketing? How do you know when you kind of meet it somewhere, or how do you know when you do it? So to me, great product marketing is simply customer obsession. And the reason I say that is, back in the day, you were in a world where the business needs you had or the product features you were creating were really like upfront, like what you did. And that was when like you had, you know, a lot of on-premise software and a lot of businesses that were buying based on a checklist of features. And I'm sure all of you know by now that a lot of that has changed, and I'm preaching to the choir, but to me, it's all about customer needs and customer benefits, discovering them, speaking of them, etc. And so, you know, the best summary I can give for this is your customer is all that matters. I know I'm not saying anything revolutionary yet. Maybe I won't today. I don't know. But what I am going to say is, to me, product marketing is all about customer obsession. That's what great product marketing is. And we at my companies now have sort of developed our own kind of 3 steps to customer obsession. I made it up for this talk, but I really took in everything I know from the last about 18 months to 2 years creating a new product and coming up with this, because I thought that all the crap out there was just a lot of to-dos and a lot of things that you had to do. And it felt like the customer obsession was missing. The part where like you get obsessed with the customer to the point where like you understand their needs, and you also can map those to the business needs in a way that's focused on them, because it is all about the customer. So first of all, work backward. Any of you heard of work backward or working backwards? Yep, okay, cool, great. So this is gonna be fun. So first what I'm gonna do is break down these 3, and then I'm gonna give an example or 2 or 3 going through the framework. So this is Amazon. They're really well known for the working backwards process. They, I believe, invented it over there, and it's all about working backwards from the customer. And if you look at, and I'm like a historian for this stuff, maybe I'm too geeky about it, but like I really think about the products that they've had that have been successful and the ones that haven't. And when I think about that, if you think about AWS as a product, they were able to predict the future. This is the process they use to predict the future. If you think about their phone, I don't even know what it's called anymore. They were able to build a product where they were trying to track your face and all that kind of stuff. And their whole thesis that what it felt like their thesis was is we'll build different APIs so that people can build games on this thing, because games are a big thing that attracts people to phones because developers get attracted to them and there's a reason to use this phone. So if you think about the thesis, it actually was a reasonable thesis at the time. It just didn't make sense. Nobody wanted a fourth or fifth type of phone or operating system. So it can fail, obviously, just like everything else. So this is a detailed view on it. I think one of the key things is about how they iterate on a press release, and they create that very early in their product development process. In fact, it's one of the first things they create, while most of us, it's one of the last things we do. And I've got some examples that are more modern a little bit later. So they have a whole breakdown of how they do the press release. And the key thing about this concept and the way they do working backwards is that they're taking inputs from customers, customer interviews, customer feedback, all that stuff, and creating this. In my opinion, product marketing needs to be heavily involved in this and or own this document early on in the process. And I'll talk more about what I consider more modern ways to do it, because quite frankly, many of us are not actually chugging out press releases all the time. The second step is what I would call engage then launch. So I am supposed to talk about post-launch, but what I really need to talk about is customer obsession and how you get to a place where you get to succeed post-launch and iterate. So that's the whole thesis. So has anyone heard this rant from me about early access versus beta? Ever? Okay, good. Fresh room. I get to inundate you with my concepts. This one's a pet peeve of mine. The reason this one's a pet peeve of mine is because I see so much out there about this word, with this word beta. And beta implies buggy, I shouldn't use it, and things like that. And early access implies that it's special and it's for me, and I'm getting access to it. And so I have long rants on this. I don't want to go off on it now. We made a nice little graphic about it because I wanted to make sure that the gospel is spread, especially this one. Super important to me, and I think people are catching on. You're seeing a lot more early access. Google's doing a lot of stuff, and they're calling it early access now instead of beta. I'm not sure when early access gets played out. I am already working on the next term. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like a red rope line, or I don't know. Anyway, working on it. But this is really important because when you say it's not buggy and it's early, people are more likely to share their opinion about what it is from a product standpoint, not necessarily from a here are all the bugs that it has, more from an opportunity standpoint of here's what it could be, and that's really important early on in the process. So that's why I like calling things early access, and what it turns out to be is that we start creating processes where we have a private early access, and then we have a public early access. And the public early access is very much a timeline kind of product launch. Private early access is what you want to do to learn from customers while you want to keep things private and a little more quiet. So written a bunch of stuff about early access. I can go to town on the concept and why it's important. Have a bunch of blog posts out about it on my blog, producthabits.com. But this is really what's important. When you do an early access, you get to ask people questions. And I'm a fan of open-ended questions asked the right way. So I'm not saying you go ask a bunch of open-ended questions the wrong way. But this is one of the key questions I like to ask when I do an early access process. And the question really is, and this is an example for one of the products I built, FYI, where we wanted to figure out what the #1 challenge with documents is that people have. And so we asked them, what's your single biggest challenge when it comes to creating and sharing documents? And then we added this description to really hone in on getting people to give us as much information as possible. We had folks write essays about their problems in this kind of type form fill-in box. So this is one of the key questions we use for early access. You can do it for any product or business, B2C, B2B, hybrid, whatever. This is another one of my favorite ones because in the survey itself or in the application for early access, you're basically asking them, how are you going to help us? Right? How do you want to? And then we had a tremendous amount of people, except for the local one, fill out everything except that one if they're not local because they want to help. And we're asking them to help us build this feature or this product or whatever, what have you. Also, this process works for a feature or a new product. It doesn't matter. This is one of my favorite ones. Many of you might have heard of it as a fake door. a painted door, a smoke test. I recently talked to a friend from that used to work at Netflix, and he's like, we called them painted doors. I'm like, okay, that's a lot more positive than some of the other concepts here. So one of my favorite ways to sort of engage and then launch is basically create these painted doors. And the idea here is basically explained by Optimizely, where you just add a fake button, a fake link. Sometimes you can A/B test it, and you can see which one people care about more, whether it's the words or even different placements and things like that. So it's a very good tactic. I know many of you are like, yeah, I don't control that part of the product or anything like that. Well, like one of my pieces of advice is like, go get control over more of the areas in the product where you can do things like this, or make some friends on the kind of core product team so that you can start testing things like this. It's a really key way to do it. So more information on this here. I think the biggest thing for me here is like, it helps you take care of a lot of the risk that's in the business earlier on, or risk with the feature. And that's all I want to do with all these processes, which is like how to reduce the risk that like whatever my message is that I'm going to put out in the world resonates and gets people to take the next step, which usually means sign up, use this feature, adopt it, understand whether it's for them or not, which is also important. And this kind of testing really helps with that. So this is last but not least step in the process. It's probably the most boring one and the one that I personally used to avoid until recently. So this is a template. I think I've linked to it here. Yep. And it's a template that my co-founder Marie and I came up with in order to just do post-mortems. And this is a generic template on post-mortems on anything. And if you don't do post-mortems or retrospectives or reviews or are reflective about what you did, you're not going to learn. Like, period, full stop. So this is baked into everything we do. Sometimes I'll do a tweet or a tweet storm, and I'll write up a little postmortem because it's something we want to repeat or learn from because something interesting happened. So that's the way we think about it, and I highly recommend you take some kind of concept like this and do something with it. So as promised, I'm going to give some examples. None of you know about Product Hunt, right? Cool. One of the things that I find really interesting when it comes to where product marketing has gotten to is the fact that you need to engage, and there are a lot of communities out there. Product Hunt is just the example I'm going to give because it's interesting, and we have a deliberate process just like we do for many things. This one's not 3 steps. I think there's 5 here, but basically it's like we want to find out what works and what doesn't in the community. We want to discover how to engage with people. We want to make friends by contributing. We want to be timely and relevant, and we want to add value before we actually promote what we have. I mean, this is sort of what most people do when they're marketing and trying to like hack Reddit or whatever the words are and stuff like that. But really, now that it comes to communities, you actually have to get really involved. So there's a number of ways I've done that on Product Hunt myself. I created a collection that's called free stuff for startups. And it's the most popular collection on Product Hunt. I just did it on a whim because I know people love free stuff, and Product Hunt has lots of free stuff on it. So that's one way that I contributed, added value. I think it's one of the biggest things I've done on the platform, because now every time I add a free product to it that's on Product Hunt, it gets emailed to all those 6,000, 7,000 whatever people that subscribe to my collection, right? So there's those kinds of mechanics that you're looking to understand. Okay, so I'm going to give my examples of these 3 kind of steps in action, because otherwise I'm just saying a bunch of crap that you folks can't do anything with. So we launched something actually more recently on a whim, and it was an integration with my product, FYI, where what we do with FYI is we help you find your documents in 3 clicks or less across all the cloud tools you use. And we launched Evernote integration, and it kind of bombed. Like, we usually do pretty well, but like it kind of bombed. There's a bunch of reasons it bombed. I'll get into that. But we just didn't do our deliberate process, and we just wanted to launch it. And we didn't have expectations or any goals for it, and that was all on purpose. Or at least that's what I'm saying now. We did another one that was for product habits. It's called Product News, and it did okay. And it did okay because the product does not have retention, and we knew that, but we wanted to launch it because we built it with someone called a maker, and we had fun building it with him, and we got a bunch of signups from an email list standpoint, and we grew our email list with it. But this is a very traditional, like, launch it and know it's going to die. I still have to update the damn site every day, but whatever, because I just feel the need to. It's basically a site where you go there and you see product news, and it's at producthabits.com/news, and you'll probably see I haven't updated today. Been kind of busy. And then last but not least, this is when we actually launched something we were much more thoughtful about and went through a very deliberate process that I'm going to talk about, and it worked really well. And it was basically a template gallery for product management that works across all the tools that you use. So we have templates from everything from Docs all the way to Coda or Notion if you're into those products. And we have it very well organized and all that kind of good stuff. So what we did is we worked backwards. So that was the first step. So the way we work backwards is we basically, and you can get this template, but it's in Sketch. So if you use something else, sorry. We basically created a Sketch template, a mock-up of a product hunt page, and we filled everything in. So it's very similar to the press release process that Amazon would use, and we filled it in as if this product was live, and these were the characteristics of the page. So this is the copy, the images, and everything. You can see this version is a little different than the kind of launch page here that I showed you, because we iterated it after we did this and after learning. And the way we did that is we actually ran user tests from usertesting.com on the flow. And the flow was people visit the product hunt page, they click on going to our website, as you can see here, and then they go to the website. And we asked them a bunch of questions. So you could say, oh, you just asked them a couple questions. No, we asked them a bunch of questions. And these questions, and just like about 10 videos of people walking through it and answering these questions, got us to iterate that fake sort of product hunt page and learn exactly how people think about the words, the images, and the way we frame the whole product. You can do this for anything. It doesn't have to be product hunt. You can do this if the way you're doing product marketing and marketing in general is off of GitHub. You can do this if you're doing it on Reddit. There's no excuses here, on doing it. And product hunt is probably a good place to start, just because I just gave you a template on that the designers can take and move around, or you could too, because it's in Sketch, and Sketch is easy. So this is the way I look at it. If you care about customers, product, and time, you'll work backward, because it'll just save you a lot of headache from launching and then learning. So I like to learn and then launch, because then it's likely that whatever your goals are more likely to be met. And if you have goals with some of this stuff, when you do the user testing and things like that, you can really align with what you're looking to achieve. So then we have engage, then launch. So this one's really interesting, because we know this community really well. This specific launch that we did worked out really well, and here are the ways that we did it. So one thing we did is we knew from the user test exactly what people cared about, and we knew how to think about the product marketing of it. And a simple example is when you put a bunch of companies or a bunch of people in a tweet, they end up retweeting it or liking it at least, and then it gets more play on Twitter. So we knew that, and this product happened to be a product where we had all these folks' templates in the product. So this is what our tweet was, and it had decent, if not great, engagement. It got us a bunch of clicks and everything. Then we did another one, and this one's interesting because I tweeted something, and it was just a statement, and then I threaded it, and the second tweet was basically the sort of thing I really wanted people to go to and promote. So these are the kind of strategies, just like with Twitter, we would play around with it, understand how to engage, and go after it. So these are just good examples of how you get to engage and then launch. And so we think about these tweets and things like that very early in the process, so that we're baking it in just like we would the working backwards process. And last but not least, in the product hunt community, people want to give you feedback. They want to sit there and tell you everything you're doing right or wrong, and it's a very happy community in general, and we know that about the community. It's much different than Hacker News. Definitely got roasted in my billion-dollar mistake on Hacker News, but that's okay. I'll live with it, or cry in the corner. And so what we did here is we basically made it very deliberate about asking for feedback and really knowing and studying what comments get the most upvotes by the makers who post something on Product Hunt. And we sort of reverse engineered it and figured out, okay, this is how we need to interact with this community. So this is kind of near and dear to my heart. This is a lot more on the product side, but it is relevant to product marketing. And it's basically this process I like to use to engage and launch, which is how do we engage with people even before we launch something? And I know a lot of the things I said involve that, like early access and things like that, but there's just a formula here that I like to use. So it's start with step one. So whatever you're building, however you're thinking about it, there's a first step to take, make it a baby step, and then basically from there, learn and iterate really fast. So I'll give a very tangible example. So a buddy of mine, Brian, who likes to watch some of the stuff we're working on and decided to finally sign up for my product after a year, basically tweeted this. So this is FYI. This is the interface. It's actually a screenshot of him using the product, performing a search, finding a document. And we're testing something. So when you hover over each item, you'll get this little plus button. And you hover, you hover over an item, you see the plus button, you decide to click it, you think something's going to happen. We don't know what your expectation is. We can only imply that there's some expectation. So what we decided to do before we built the feature was take a baby step. So this baby step is basically show it on hover, make people click it, and then make them tell us what's up. So what we like to do is once we know we're going to build a feature, we start playing around with things like this, and then we make it a product marketing function because we need to understand what people think about this. This could be a product function too, but we like making it a product marketing function because it helps us figure out how people think about this in their own words. And so we wanted to know when they hit the plus, what was their expectation? Is it gonna align with what we are gonna do in the product for them? And another thing we did here is we actually tracked how many of these pluses were viewed, how many people hovered on the pluses, and how many people clicked on the pluses. And that gave us a nice little funnel to understand whether we were gonna get the adoption we wanted. Because in our case, a lot of times we think about product marketing as also an adoption thing. So we should be focused on adoption. If we're not focused on adoption in the work we do, we might not know its impact. And then last but not least, document what happened. So again, this is the template, and I guess that's my face in it. And this is it partially filled out. So we'll take our template, and then we'll fill it out a little bit just to figure out like what are we trying to understand about this initiative, and then we sort of filled it out all the way. And this is my co-founder, Marie, who I have learned a lot about documentation and process and writing stuff. She's a writer, and post-mortems and reviews, not just in my work life, but in my personal life. So if you folks want to tweet anything, if you can tweet at her and tell her to write about her thoughts around reviews and post-mortems and retrospectives, maybe we'll get some amazing content from her about it. But basically, this is the line she says. Post-mortems let you objectively look at all the facts of a situation, identify what went wrong, and what could be done better next time. And again, just like product marketing, here's a simple example of like what I would call product marketing for post-mortems, something I've had to learn the hard way from her. We have a newsletter at producthabits.com. It's free for now, probably forever. And I mean it. If you have questions and you want help, just email me. I have help now. John, are you in the room? I got like a minute or two. I'm going to give you a hard time. Where's John? That's John. He helps us with product habits now. So he might be helping at least tell me which questions I should be answering on here. But like, yeah, we're really excited about product marketing, product development, and share a ton of stuff that's relevant. Thank you for listening.